Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Pregame Network podcast. This is episode 95. I am your host, Dan, joined as always by my bestest pal, Anthony, and we are the two hosts of the only gaming news show on the internet that is not afraid to piss anybody off or offend anyone or ruffle any feathers, blah, blah, blah.
And all variants were within.
Indeed. We have to draw up a contract sooner or later. um, this week, a little bit tamer, but still, I think, in my opinion, plenty going on.
Oh, of course.
So, as always, we'll start with what we've been playing and then jump right into the news proper. I know, as far as what we've been playing, there is that's going to be a good chunk of this episode because So
and, you can lead, you can take the lead on this one, and then I'll go. A lot more.
I was gonna say I'm gonna go first because
Go for it.
I mean what you have to say is probably gonna be a lot longer than what I have to say, and then the Venn diagram will meet shortly thereafter.
Absolutely.
So, okay, what have I been playing this week? A lot of Resident Evil, but not Requiem.
Okay.
So I was gonna save this as a surprise to Anthony, but he saw me playing Resident Evil 7 Biohazard earlier this week. Now, if you have been listening to the podcast, you will know that I am not a fan of horror anything. Horror movies, horror games. I mean, horror movies, give or take, it depends on like the actual property, but generally, like overall, I do not like to be scared. As far as games go, the scariest thing that I think I've ever played, it's probably, like, honestly, it's probably Resident Evil 4.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably the scariest thing that I've played from beginning to end. From beginning to end, Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 2 remake, I just fucking put it down. I just couldn't do it. It was too much. It was too much. I've wanted to play Resident Evil Village for a while now, and Anthony, as you've told me over and over again, you really need to play Biohazard to get the full effect and really understand Village. So that's what I decided to do. I started Resident Evil 7, and I started a few days ago, but somebody was in the room with me because I'm sorry, I don't care how this makes me sound. I just don't have the fucking stones to sit there by myself and play this game. In how many hours did I put in so far? I only put in 2 hours.
Oh my god.
Well, look, I wasn't going to play it when I'm just sitting in a room by myself.
That's the perfect time to play it.
No.
Immersion.
No, thank you. And especially, so I'm going to go into spoilers of the first 2 hours of Biohazard because it's been out for long enough. Everyone who's interested in it has probably played it at this point. But the fucking I don't know what was going on with Mia in the beginning of the game because like it seems like you found her and she's normal, and then a couple minutes goes by and she gets like kind of, the only way I can describe it is possessed. And then to the point where she starts hunting you around the house and then creeps up on you with a fucking chainsaw and then cuts your goddamn hand off. But Capcom did such a good job with the camera angles. And like, the part where you're at the second floor of the house and you turn around and you're going to walk back downstairs to the basement, or I guess to the first floor, and you're basically just walking into darkness.
Yes.
And you get to a certain point and I guess it triggers the event of the possessed Mia like getting right up in your face, and you could just see every fucking facial feature, and it is just disturbing. So yeah, I mean that, God, it's just so creepy, man. It's just so creepy. I'm gonna finish it. I promise you, I'm gonna finish it.
I believe in you.
Yeah, it's got to be when like someone else is in the room with me. I can't stand it. I don't like that feeling of dread.
It's actually it's funny, just as an aside, as you're telling me this, once I figured out what you were doing, I remember you're just like, I just made my way into the house, and the first thing I wanted to say is, which house? Because there is so much game that you've yet to come around to.
I'm playing through it one time, Anthony, and I'm done. I'm putting it down. I will never touch it again. And I'm not to say that it's a bad game. It's actually too good at what it fucking does, okay? So, Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, I started that. I played a little bit of Arc Raiders. We played a little bit of Resident Evil 5 here and there, not too much this week.
Hmm.
Um, I've been going back and forth with Battlefield. I'm trying to unlock the new weapons, but it's locked behind the Battle Pass, and I don't like the way that they're handling the Battle Pass progression. Like, you have to complete challenges to get tokens, and then that's the fastest way to rank it up by
Yeah.
like a sizable margin. It's just fucking dumb,
Yeah,
but you still
the
have to
battle
do it.
pass system in Battlefield 6 is a bit of a wet fart for me.
Yeah,
You know,
honestly, it's egregious. It
yeah.
really does kind of suck. Um, I've been putting a decent amount of time into Space Marine.
Hmm.
We just actually just got finished playing it. The new Tech Marine class is definitely fun,
Yeah.
but those tarantula turret placements, man, they're static. And so, okay, no, I take that back. They're not static. They're randomized on the map.
Okay.
And I only confirmed that of the last playthrough of this mission that I just did before we hopped on,
Hmm.
because several turret locations were not in the same places than where we played, and I was doing the same mission. So, but the placement is just fucking weird. Like, you always activate it just after you're done with a combat encounter, and it's just like, what's the point of where it is? So Space Marine 2, it's always a good time, and I put a ton of time into Resident Evil 4 remake Mercenaries yesterday. I played it for like basically all day. I played it for like 6 or 7 hours, and I went through every Mercenaries map on every character, and I got S
Yes.
plus on each of them, and I
Hmm.
unlocked the Leon costume for the main campaign.
There you
Um,
go.
yeah, I love that game. It's so good. I know you have your issues with it. I know that you don't think it's a bad game, but you just think it's
Yeah,
unnecessary, and that's neither here nor there.
it's a whole conversation that one day maybe we'll have, or I'll do my own little video on it. And I
Yeah.
gotta say, it's like it's funny. Just before I let you go and do your thing, it's like there was an argument early on when Resident Evil 4 remake was coming out or came out, and somebody made a comparison of soul versus soulless,
Okay.
and I think like that's the best argument you can really have between the two, because you're comparing, different layers of polish and tone and how things are handled, and everybody just kind of poo-pooed on that idea very early. There was a lot of outcry, so now it's just shit flinging
Yeah,
between people who really like it and people who really hate it. Where I'm not really in that camp. I'm in the middle of critique.
I can imagine. So yeah, Resident Evil 4, I love it. It's so much fun. The combat is, look, I know after everything you just said, I am still allowed to have my fucking opinion, right? Um,
Of course.
the combat mechanics are just so tight, and it's just so well made, at least in my opinion.
Mm.
Um, I I really hope that they add mercenaries to Requiem within like a reasonable amount of time. That's honestly the only thing that's stopping me from picking it up right now.
Mhm.
Um, so that is pretty much what I've been playing.
All
Um,
right.
now, you and I did play the Marathon Server Slam for about 2.5 hours, and then I
Yes, we did.
played one match by myself, and then uh, I we should probably get into that well, no, let's get into it now
Yeah, that's
because
fine.
you're going to talk about Requiem for a little
Okay.
bit, and um, just so that Marathon is fresh in both of our minds, we should just get it out of the way now. So,
Perfectly fine. Yeah.
I'm gonna hand you the mic first because you are nearly as much of a fan of Bungie, or at least what they were, as I
Mhm.
am, or I was. So let me hear what you thought of it first, and then I'll give you my opinion, and then we'll just go back and forth from there.
Yeah. It is Marathon is what was the best way to put this? It's trying to leave with the best overall opinion on
Yeah,
it
I
is
know.
it's
Digging deep, huh?
it's an okay extraction shooter.
Yeah, that was.
Uh
If I had to describe it in one word, as far as like a quality rating goes, the only thing I've been able to think of so far is just it's okay. That's
Yeah,
it.
my whole thing is I talked to you and Luke while we were playing it. Obviously, I talked to other people who are kind of invested in the whole what's going to happen to Bungie, what's going to happen with Marathon kind of thing, and I'm just like, my takeaway is just that I was bored. I don't know. I was like not even whelmed. I was just bored when we were playing it because it feels like a mechanically sound but very confused game. right? Like I wasn't having
Yeah.
too much in the issues of like bugs or performance. I had some lag. I'm willing to like ignore that based on the server slam and the fact that I'm not going to go there. I was rubber banding quite a bit. Um,
That might have
I
been my fault because of the network that I'm on,
hmm,
but can't say for sure.
you never know. I just I don't know. I have very little to say. Like I don't want to be that guy that just like shits on. It's the most offensive thing about it is that it's boring. It doesn't live up to the hype of anything that when I think Bungie or I think the original Marathon. I have my gripes about an IP being used this way when
Yeah.
it's not representative of anything. The two things that really stuck out to me is that the UI is atrocious.
Yeah, it's really bad.
It's messy, and like every time I say messy, I don't want people to get the wrong idea. I have nothing wrong with like having layered menus or a lot going on or a lot of control and a lot of management. That's
Yeah,
fine
but it's
with
got
me.
to
It's
be
just
presented in a
yeah,
special, in a good way.
yeah, and that's the fact that it's like this is wild to me because all these companies put so much into UI and they do the whole stupid UX. It's UX. It's user experience, and
Yeah,
it's like
fuck
none of
off.
that came into play here, or like just as we already know, it's all bullshit. Um, and the only other thing I have to say is, I gave this game a lot of shit for its garish color combinations. Whether it looks like the original Marathon games or not, I'm just saying it is very garish and harsh on the eyes. However, the environments like the nature, the overall world looks fine. And so I looked out into the distance and like the swamps and I'm like, ooh, the fog is kind of nice, the trees are nice, the fauna is nice. But I'm walking on like this giant like I think I described it to you. I'm like this. It feels like I'm walking through a kid's toy store. Like I'm back at the fucking Noodle Caboodle. And you called it Legoland.
Yeah,
And
I
I
said
thought that was
Legoland.
offensive. Yeah, and I said that was offensive to Legos. Don't do that. And like I don't know, like you'll have much more to say on it, and I'll nod along and probably have some interjections. But to me, the most offensive thing is that it was boring. That's all.
Yeah, so that's been a big complaint in the community so far, and obviously I have my ear to the ground with this game a lot more than you do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so a big complaint is that it's boring. There's not a lot going on, especially when you are early in your progression, because apparently the whole stamina, like overheating mechanic or whatever, that becomes a lot easier to mitigate later on.
Okay.
But when you first start out, you run out of stamina really, really quick, and it takes a while for it to actually cool down. Now, the only one-to-one comparison there could be for this game, at least right now, is Arc Raiders, and stamina is such a huge resource in that game as well. But it just didn't feel as restrictive as Marathon for whatever reason. Um, there was like a lot of times where you're running around looting, checking out whatever environment that you're in, and whether you're jumping, sliding, running, or any mobility type of mechanic, it all takes a toll on your stamina.
Of course.
And because of that, you end up just walking around like a schmuck the entire time, because every time you slide or jump, like you lose like 15% or something like that, somewhere in that realm. And you slide 3 times in a row, like that's a lot of stamina that you're sacrificing right there. And if you get caught when your stamina is fully exhausted, like you're just dead. Like there's really no other way
Yeah.
around it. Like you're gonna lose that gunfight. So that's a pretty big complaint. Another big complaint that I have personally is that uh, the AI is unreasonably difficult, in my opinion. Like I've got no problem with having challenging AI enemies in these kinds of games, but there were several times where me, you, and Luke were playing, and I genuinely had difficulty discerning whether or not I was shooting at a computer or if I was shooting at another player because of the way that they moved. It was just so lightning fast reactive, and then the health pools seemed like they were way too high, especially for the destroyer class of enemy where like they have the
Yeah.
big shield.
The enemy stuff really surprised me because there were moments where I'm just like, I feel like the combat with them was going on for too long, and I'm with you. I'm like I don't mind a little bit of a challenge, obviously, but it felt like I was fighting single player enemies almost. And that's like, I mean, we didn't get into too many PvP fights, but I feel like that would be incredibly just not satisfying in the slightest if I like was essentially playing a single player mission and I was just out of nowhere I got interrupted by like some, PvP tryhards or whatever, you know. I was also surprised, like one of the enemies, like down, like I was down, and then a completely unrelated enemy saw me getting revived and
Yeah.
just sniped me and finished me. I'm like, that would be cool if this was just like a cooperative open world experience, but that's not what it is. Like,
Yeah.
because in the background, like I'm trying to loot, I'm trying to do other things, I'm trying to avoid dying, and even that's not clear. So it's just, that's part of the confusion part I was talking about before.
Yeah, so I'm on SteamDB right now actually because it's obviously that's pretty important to look at when we're talking about this game. Now it is just a service line, but it is free. The full game is going to cost $40, which just
Yeah.
a little asterisk. I don't think it is it warrants a $40 price tag, but that's a conversation for later maybe. But so the all-time peak was 3 days ago when it first launched. Obviously, it peaked at 143,000 concurrent players. The 24-hour peak is 69,000. That's a big drop off. Right now in game, there's 55,000 people. For a Sunday night, that's a big drop off, especially for a free quote unquote beta. I think that Bungie choosing this genre to invest in their next game is a huge, or was a huge gamble. I don't think they're going to see the numbers that they're hoping for, that they saw or are used to with Destiny 2. It's
Yeah.
just not the same thing. And maybe they're okay with that, but I don't think Sony's okay with that. And I think that Sony pulled Bungie largely off of Destiny to develop Marathon, and I don't think it's going to pan out for them the way that they are hoping. Now, there's a whole other conversation to have about the Destiny community's feelings towards Marathon, because everything that I've seen so far is just like unbridled hate and like pointing the finger saying "I told you so." And while I do consider myself in that camp at least a little bit, I'm not gonna sit here and on my soapbox on the internet and go on a whole rant about that, because it's just not worth my breath. I think that making a Destiny 3 was probably the way that Bungie should have went. I get this overwhelming sense that, well, it's not even a sense, like we know that this is essentially Bungie trend chasing, right? Like the extraction genre has blown up over the past couple of years, especially with the launch of Arc Raiders, and right now Arc Raiders is still number 4 on Steam's most played games list, being beaten out by Resident Evil Requiem right now by like almost 20,000 players, which is pretty crazy, especially for Requiem being a single player game. But yeah, man, like I think that Marathon is going to have their core audience, sure, but I don't think they're even going to get close to the numbers that Bungie and, more importantly, Sony were hoping for with this.
Yeah.
I think the gunplay feels fine. I don't think it's anything crazy. I do think Destiny feels better overall. There are a handful of weapons that are literally like one-to-one ripoffs of their Destiny 2 counterparts that are best in slot for like PvP or something like that.
I mean,
For anybody
there's
listening,
a lot of Destiny stuff in there just overall, because I felt that and saw that.
yeah. For anybody out there listening that happens to have put a fair amount of time into Destiny 2, one of the burst rifles in Marathon is like basically Redrix's broadsword. I think that's it's either the broadsword or the claymore. I think that's the broadsword. Redrix's broadsword from D2 Comp is in Marathon, and that's because it is, like, on paper, statistically speaking, it is one of the best ways you can develop a 3-shot burst rifle in a first-person shooter competitive environment. So like, I don't think the average person is going to pick up on that, but when I picked it up, I was like, oh, this is fucking Redrix's broadsword, like, to a T. Like, I felt it immediately. Like, you don't put in almost 5,000 hours into a game and you don't have, like, certain things basically committed to muscle memory and feel and not notice it the second you pull the trigger in a different game, So Number one, I don't think that Marathon is worth $40. Number two, I don't think that it's really ready yet. It launches in less than a week.
Mm.
And number three, I feel like Bungie is making this game for just all the wrong reasons. If it wasn't an extraction shooter, it would have had a 50% better chance of being a thing that people were actually interested in playing. Now, if you like the game, if you find it interesting, like go play it. Like I really don't give a shit if people like it. I'm not, like I just said, I'm not going to stand here and spew a bunch of hate because it's just not worth my time. And the decision Bungie made is already made. You know, like nothing's going to change. Now, what you said at the end of your little elevator review, you know, you don't know where this leaves Bungie. You know, dude, I don't fucking know either, because at least in the terms of Destiny, it's a lose-lose. If if Marathon flops, then Bungie is like a strong breeze away from being closed. At the very least, like Sony entirely controlling them from the inside out, which I think is already happening to an extent.
Based on everything that we've reported, is like they don't have creative control at the moment. They would lose whatever control they have left. You know.
Yeah. If it does great, if it you know hits the numbers that Bungie and Sony want, and it's a good game and it's a competent product and blah blah blah, that's still a bad thing for Destiny, because that means that Sony and Bungie are just going to keep on dumping resources into Marathon, and Destiny will still be left in the dust in the same way that it is right now. Destiny at the moment is like full-blown maintenance mode. I went over the delay for the Shadow and Order content update, which is now being completely overhauled and renamed, and they're doing something to it. And the game is just in full maintenance mode right now. I think whether or not Marathon succeeds or fails, it's a bad deal for Destiny. And it really does kind of suck, because I would love to see Destiny move on to like a different galaxy or solar system, or there's a lot of things they could do. But they're not gonna. And I think that this is just how Destiny is going to end up dying. I really, really do. And it sucks, but this is where we are.
Marathon so boring and forgettable, it drags down Destiny.
Yeah. You know, all that being said, if Bungie came out tomorrow and was like, you know, we heard what you guys are saying about Destiny 3, we are going to start developing it, you know, the next fiscal year or whatever it is. It's going to take like 3 to 5 years, but we're working on it. I think the Destiny community the world over would be very okay with that, because at least there is a destination. You know, we're not just left in complete darkness, and that's kind of where we are right now. Because we know what's on the immediate horizon with the next content update, but beyond that, it's anybody's guess. We have no fucking idea what's going to happen with that franchise as an IP, and right now it just doesn't look good. So yeah. Marathon is a thing, and I think it's going to drag down Destiny whether it fails or succeeds. So,
there you go.
I don't think, much like many other things I talk about, I'm going to just start talking in circles. So, Marathon,
that's what
Server
you've been
Slam.
playing.
Yep, has currently been going on, and I think it's. Like I said, it's going to have its core player base. Beyond that, I don't think it's going to do very good numbers.
Yeah.
So, why don't you tell me what you've been playing, and then we'll get on with it.
I mean, outside of the cooperative elements that we talked about before, like, you know, in Space Marine and the Server Slam, and outside of my rotation, you know, like Rivals and whatnot, I've been able to put a few more hours into Expedition 33, because that's a playthrough me and Luke have been doing on the side. Me and Harrison and you obviously have played Resident Evil 5 a fair bit, and you know, less than last week, but you know, it is what it is. And me and him occasionally, we just put a couple hours into like a casual playthrough again, just to unlock the side content so that we have it on tap. But other than that, the big one for me this week is obviously Resident Evil Requiem. So
yes, I've been very, very, very curious as to hear what your thoughts are. You sent me your tier list which I really wasn't shocked by. But let
Yeah.
me hear the full unabridged thoughts.
Yeah, so the first thing I'll say is just in a setting, as far as how I played it, I did two playthroughs right next to each other. I was doing a
Really? Wow.
normal, yeah, I was doing a normal run for the channel, which ended up, the footage ended up getting corrupt anyway, so I don't know what I'm going to do with
Oh,
that. And then I
boo.
did a casual run through for people who wanted to see what the game's about and see what was going on with that. And uh, prior to the game coming out, I had a bit of a theory in the back of my head. I said,
Okay.
because I love making this comparison. I'm not the only one that makes it. I've said to you in the past, Resident Evil 7 is the Resident Evil 1 of the RE engine. Resident Evil Village is the RE4 of the RE engine as far as their pacing and tone and scope. And I jokingly said to you, and I said it to myself, I said something along the lines of, wouldn't it be something if this ended up being the Resident Evil 6 of the RE engine? And I meant that in a few different ways. I meant it in the nature of the game and how it struggles with the pacing and whatnot. And I am confident in saying I will be sticking with that. That it is the Resident Evil 6 of the RE engine.
That is a pretty scathing, initial review to a lot of people.
So I need to say it right now because there's a lot of negative things out there about Resident Evil 6 where I remember saying over a decade ago when it came out, I'm just like, this is the most polarizing release that a Resident Evil's ever had. And that's the bulk of what I'm saying with Resident Evil Requiem, because it inherits a lot of its pacing issues. It inherits a lot of the reaction around it, which I'll save for the end because some of that is nuts. But basically, leading into this, I said that my major problem was going to be the split nature, because it does not work out when you do a split nature. It hurt Revelations 2, it hurt Resident Evil 6, and that ended up being, again, the worst part about Resident Evil Requiem. Now, that being said, I did really like the game. You mentioned the little tier list that I had out there. Obviously, it takes a while for things to settle. Hindsight's 2020. You got to react to some things. I put it in the B tier, which is
I think it's worth noting that all of the major video game news outlets out there, it's been cleaning up across the board. It's been getting at minimum like an 8. So that's the lowest that I've seen. I think the best I've seen is a perfect score, a 10. But every outlet that I've seen has been giving it very positive reviews.
I actually have in my mind to kind of go over why that is. I'll save that for once I'm done with my own thoughts. But the way I'll kind of lead into that, I'll tell you right now, is because it's a very palatable game.
Okay.
But as for me, like I said, I mentioned I have my tier list. S and A tier, the two top tiers, those are my best, my favorite. That's where you have the original remake, the original 1. That's where you have 5 when played cooperatively, the original 4. Resident Evil 3, which is just my personal favorite, far from the best. That's like my gimme. That's like that's my biased pick is Resident Evil 3. Okay. I fucking love Resident Evil 3.
The original one, right?
The original, of course, yes.
RE3 remake was not good at all, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can only do so poorly with that, gameplay style, but everything about it's the one RE Engine mainline Resident Evil title or remake that everyone kind of agrees sucked, just to kind of give you perspective on that. But Resident Evil Requiem falls right below that. It falls below the two gatekeepers. The two gatekeepers being the original Resident Evil 2, which is a phenomenal horror game in its own right, but not one of my favorites. And then right next to that is the remake of Resident Evil 4, which, as you mentioned before, as we talk about all the time, I respect the competency of the gameplay, the scope of the content. I just think it's a pointless remake. But they currently, this could change in the future, they gatekeep my proper tiers. And as of right now, Requiem falls right beneath Resident Evil 4 remake. It's above Resident Evil Village. I forget what I put in between that. I think the Outbreak games might be in between that. One played multiplayer, but it's all the same. I'm not going to break down my tier list right now, but I really, really liked Requiem in the way that you really, really like a game and wish it did not have the flaws that made you not love it. So before I get started with my review proper, I can handle this either way you want. Do you care about spoilers?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Do you
I'm
care
gonna play
about?
it. I just matter of when.
That's fine. Do you care about gameplay spoilers, like if I talk about overlays and shit like that, and sections and how they play?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so the biggest thing when you talk about Resident Evil Requiem, and it's something like I was concerned about before, as I just got done saying, is the layout of the game being split between Grace and Leon. Now, it opens up well enough, right? Grace has a prologue, introduces the story. Leon has a prologue, introduces why he's involved in the story, right?
Okay.
Immediately after that, you get into a opening gameplay segment where you basically get little snippets of how both are going to play. You know, it sets them up in the main setting and whatnot. Grace's opening gameplay segment is pretty much, it's the best way I can put it is that house segment in Resident Evil 7 that you described to me at the beginning that you just got through. It's like that, or it's even closer to compare it to like the demo. It's like a very early portion of Resident Evil 7. And then it immediately switches to Leon. I'm like, okay, let's play a little bit of Leon. And I noticed something almost immediately. It was painfully short. And I'm like, but I'm just like, no, listen. I said, it's not going to be that bad. We're going to be fine. All right? Takes us back to Grace. Now, Grace, this is like the main game. This is what most people are going to think about when they think about Requiem. This part and one of Leon's parts. It's basically you explore this entire mental care facility. You go through the entire thing. It's not broken up from this point on. You go, everything you need to do gets done in that care facility. There's a west wing and east wing, 2-3 floors between each. You go through it, you do your thing. It's basically like the middle portion of Resident Evil 7. That's what it feels like to me. Then, get right back to Leon, and you play through the entire same map as Leon. But there's a problem with this, and it's cool in one way, but it sucks in another. Because Leon, he has a straight shot. He just needs to get to one room in this building, right? The cool thing about it is anything you didn't take care of as Grace is there waiting for Leon to just fucking tear through. So if you played it safe and stealthily, all those enemies are still waiting and you can just fucking obliterate them as Leon.
Nice.
And it's awesome. But here's the thing. If you're me, or if you're anyone who takes who played the main game, so to speak, the way it was supposed to be played, you tore through that, and Leon basically doesn't have a whole lot to do. You can scavenge if you want.
Sucks.
There's a few, but here's the thing: they kind of tease you in the Grace segment. It's like, oh, there's like stuff that it's like, oh, this thing is like warped. You can't open this. But Leon, he can tear that shit right open. Unfortunately, like even if you go to that, it's just like a little extra scavenging bit. You know, it's not like a hidden thing for him to do. So you rush, you go to the room, and then Leon's segment is over. And I'm just like, well, that kind of sucks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Next segment is Grace's second part of the game. It's basically just a huge stalker segment. It's basically you gotta be stealthily, and it's at that point I think I said something like there were already 2 stalker enemies in the game. I'm just like, I don't know if I want to do a third. I feel like I'm playing Alien Isolation, and if I wanted to play Alien Isolation, I would go play Alien Isolation. And you get through that. It's a little shorter than the first segment. And then you get another short Leon segment, which is basically just him sniping for a little bit. And then you get Grace's final boss. And then after that, you leave the care facility. And that's when you get to what everyone was teasing, Raccoon City, right? Mm-hmm. And in Raccoon City, that's like a third of the game by itself. It's almost a little gratuitous. It's a mini open world where you play as Leon. And it is dense. You do a lot of shit there. I think that
as Leon.
Yes, as Leon. I think whatever they had planned like previously, because obviously this game went through a shit ton of development changes during the development of Resident Evil. I think I briefly talked to you about like, they had different builds of the game, and like I kind of griped. It's like there was a Leon-led horror game, and I'm like, I kind of wanted that. But one of the other things they tested is like a cooperative like survival shooter that they showed very little about. Like basically they showed gameplay, but they blurred out fucking everything on the screen, so you couldn't really tell what was going on. And for years there's been rumors about like, a Resident Evil Apocalypse game, which is like an open world survival thing. They've toyed with these ideas forever. I think whatever was part of those apocalyptic kind of builds or those survival shooter builds, they put into this one Leon segment and then expanded on it. It's literally like semi-open world. They cram in like a bunch of different bosses, which are like just fan service to people like me who remembers like, oh, you remember the original Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 2? Well, this one's for you. And throughout the entire thing, there's a fucking points system, and you're buying upgrades and you're buying new weapons, and it ends with Resident Evil 6 tier action. And
Okay,
it
that's
is
like
just
a big shift.
yeah, it is gratuitous in a way I didn't think the game was going to get, and I kind of love it in a way. It's just so needlessly massive because it really feels like it would like playing that segment. It feels like you're entering like the game proper of of a different game, and what that does to this one segment in the game is that it feels kind of abrupt to shift to, and when it ends you really feel like, oh, I thought I was just getting into the game proper, right? But it's a ton of fun. That Leon segment is broken up in the middle with one of the worst sequences in a Resident Evil game I think ever. There's like a brief flashback right in the middle where you're forced to do like hide and go seek, and it has like the worst checkpoint system ever, and it just sucks, and I don't know why it was there. But after those two things, you play as Grace for a short period of time, then you play as Leon for the final boss, and that's the game. That's the layout. And I really just wish that the pacing was a little bit better. Like you could remove like one Leon segment, make another one longer, remove that weird fucking flashback in the middle of the massive Leon segment. I could digress. I digress because like I could be here all day telling you what they could have done versus what they couldn't have done. But the bottom line is, as I was worried about, the pacing is the issue. And anyone who's telling you, not that I base my purchasing habits based on reviews these days because all these people are fucking nuts or bought out or whatever. One thing I read consistently is like, you know, oh, it's so perfect. It blends perfectly together because it's all tension is Grace and then it's catharsis is Leon. And I'm just like that catharsis is like the nicest way you could put that, because every time it could be catharsis, you're only with Leon for like 5 to 10 minutes, and that's like if you're going at a reasonable pace and choosing not to wander through empty hallways for a little bit, you know. And that kind of sucked to me. But yeah, I
like
guess
not great.
yeah, I'm not gonna grill the entire game. Overall, it's a fun game. It's a good game. You saw where I placed it. Grace, when you're playing as her, it does feel like classic Resident Evil translated to a first person and third person. And I know a lot of people are going to say that it's not like the classics. It's just an interpretation of this classic style, because if you play the original Resident Evil games like 1 and 2, one of the strategies you do is you down enemies, and then to save ammo, you stab them with the knife. And that gameplay loop is nearly perfectly implemented in the RE Engine style, more so than Resident Evil 7 tried, because what Resident Evil Requiem does is it also mixes the newer style, because, you know, you do a melee move with Grace, she's not going to be doing roundhouse kicks, but she does shove, and the enemies fall down, and, like, something with that clicked with me. I'm just like, oh my god, it feels like I'm saving ammo the way I would in Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 2. Like early game Resident Evil 1 and 2, that's what you're doing. You're avoiding enemies, you're downing where you can, and you're stabbing them, because the knife lasts forever in those games. It unfortunately doesn't here, and they bring back the whole durability bullshit.
I am not a fan of that.
Yeah, well, basically, I would say with your experiences with 7 so far, it's like if you can make it through 7, you can probably make it through Requiem. That's the best way I can put it for you.
Okay.
I will say, and I said this to you briefly before, I said it looks like it. It is the goriest game in the series, like by far.
Nice.
And like my whole thing is like I was like, what's with the turn? I'm not going to get into it. There are story implications, and there's a gameplay mechanic that revolves around blood. So I guess they just decided.
I know what the gameplay mechanic is.
Yeah, you know that much, but I'm just like, oh, I guess they went the extra mile and just decided to like really just lay into it, because it is a blood fest, right?
Love it.
Overall, like I said, my biggest complaint is the pacing, because at the end of the day, like if I want to go back and play it, it's like in the back of my mind I'm groaning, I'm going like, it's not fun to do on repeat playthroughs. And just like, I don't know, like I said to you, it's like when I think about it, you know, it could go either way. It could, maybe I'll like it better in hindsight, maybe I won't. I do think it's trending in the opposite direction. Um, there's a lot of other good things to say about the game, not from a gameplay perspective. A lot of people are talking about the graphics. It is very graphically impressive. It looks very, very good. It's not perfect like some people are saying, but it is probably like it is achieved what the RE engine set out to do with 7. Because 7, well, you mentioned, it still looks good. It doesn't look bad. It does lack in a few areas with polish. It's an issue that Resident Evil 9 does not have. Overall, it's a good game. That's the best way I can put it. It's
Okay.
It's lacking a lot of areas. There's a lot of story stuff I don't like, which I can't get into without spoilers. And that's really the gist of it. The one thing I will say I hated, there were two elements that I hated. One was that one segment. I can't stress it enough how bad that one segment is. Like, if I was giving out a number grade, that one segment would probably knock off half a point. That's how bad that one flashback segment is. It throws a wrench into pacing. It's the worst gameplay style the series has ever played around with. Hide and seek is not fun. It's bullshit. It's unnecessary. It adds nothing. It's stupid. It's retarded. Whatever. The other thing is the sound mixing kind of dog shit, and that's very disappointing because like in a game where you need to like listen for enemies and like find where they're going, like you don't want that to be the case. Like I'm standing at a door and I can't and it's a door to a hallway. I can't tell if the enemy's from the right or the left or in somewhere unrelated. That's bad. Like you can't have that. I thought like my
headphones.
I was wearing headphones. I thought my headphones were broken. I thought maybe I did a wrong sound setting somewhere. Maybe I set it to mono somewhere. I don't know what the fuck was going on. The sound mixing, at least for spatial awareness, was just terrible. And like I think that's probably the worst mechanical aspect of the game overall. But I may sound rather dour just because I saved all the bad stuff for the end. But it's I think it's a pretty good game. So I liked it.
All right.
Yeah, my only complaints, and this is really, or my only other statements, and this is going forward because you mentioned people talking about it, and I think Resident Evil Requiem, it resonates with a certain group of people that I kind of touched on a while ago. Earlier in this conversation, I said it's very palatable. In the past, I've said that survival horror is surrounded by a very annoying group that I can only really describe as mentally effeminate. And I think this game, and in particular Grace as a character, really resonates with that people, and it makes them feel good in a way that they're really gassing up the game despite its issues. And I also just got to say this newcomer shit is getting really old because throughout the press circuit, like the developers are going like, oh, it's fine if you don't play this before. If you don't play any other games before, just come and play this game. It's great for newcomers. It's great for newcomers. You keep saying that. I mean, I know that's just them trying to get more in there, but if there was ever a game that wasn't for newcomers, it would be Resident Evil Requiem, because it closes a lot of loops story wise that have been going on since the very first one. Whether you agree or disagree with the different retcons or story elements they add is one thing to whoever's listening, but it does take a lot from that. There's a lot of elements, from other games that are brought into this. The characters of Leon and Sherry are in the game or in this series previously. It's a lot of stuff that takes from them. And mechanically speaking, like the way the game's built, it's not newcomer friendly at all. It kind of expects a lot from you. The newcomer game was Resident Evil 7. That's it. Village, you need to play 7. Resident Evil Requiem, you need to play Resident Evil 2, preferably both versions. Resident Evil 4, preferably both versions. Resident Evil 6, Resident Evil 1. I don't know. It's just I don't know. Like you could get by just by playing certain elements of it. Like you having played Resident Evil Remake 4 and a good chunk of Resident Evil Remake 2 would probably get you through Requiem without being confused, even though there's a lot more going on in the background. But it's just like I, as a longtime Resident Evil fan, recognized and saw so much where I'm just like, how, I'm not saying it's the most major thing in the world, but like a newcomer would just get absolutely nothing from this. Like they make references to the HCF. Do you even know what the fuck that is in the Resident Evil universe?
No.
Yeah, you wouldn't, because it's one of the many throwaway, rival companies to Umbrella and rival entities that was like referenced it came into play in Code Veronica and some side media. It's like, what are we really doing here? And that kind of leads me to one of my other main issues with the game, is that it feels like it's a sequel to the Resident Evil 4 remake, and like they just took bits and pieces from everywhere else. It's a very confused story for people returning to the franchise, but that's, again, I don't want to get into the story. Lastly, the things I just have to say, I'm going to get this off my chest, and then we can go move on to other stuff for the next 30 minutes. Is the conversations around this are just the fucking worst. Seeing all like the online shit about this, because it's just like, I showed you that one segment where like Leon's riding around on a motorcycle, and everyone's like, oh, but when Resident Evil 6 does it, it's bad. And I'm like, no, Resident Evil 6 had a lot of other problems. It wasn't just the over the topness about it, and like, everyone's just like, I can't believe they killed off so and so unceremoniously. I'm just like, listen, I agree with you in some cases, but I'm not going to pretend that character had fans also. It's like, if there was ever a game that had like the people that just love whatever because it's in front of them, it's new, and they see it as like a status symbol, them liking it like it's part of their personality, versus the people who just hate on things to hate on things, this game has been doing it more so than other games in recent months. And I think it's just because it's selling like hotcakes. Apparently it's doing very well as far as I can tell. All this to say is, like, I just can't stand the conversations around it. Everyone's disingenuous. None of you know more than me. I am just the Resident Evil king, and I say you're all being stupid. And before I ramble on and go in circles myself, I just could say it's a decent game. It's a lot of fun. It's a messy Resident Evil game, as many of them are. And anyone who's saying that Resident Evil was super serious or super corny all the time, it's not. Resident Evil thematically and emotionally fits fine into the core tone of the franchise. I think I think that to a degree, it kind of feels like it tries to be too Hollywood, too cinematic in some cases, as far as like, I feel like I'm watching like a mini series on Netflix or something, right? But overall, it fits with the remainder of the franchise in that regard. And everybody's pretending like, oh, I can't, like, again, I don't want to go on randomly here, but if you were looking at Requiem and either saying it's the worst thing ever because the main character is ugly or whatever, even though she's just like average, and like, they're destroying the integrity of the tone, you're an idiot. If you are looking at this and saying, well, Resident Evil's always been stupid, I can't believe you would take the story seriously, and look how hot Leon is, so that's a good thing, you're also very, 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 very fucking stupid. It's just a by the numbers Resident Evil that may or may not be better than the most recent Resident Evil before it, Village. And that's all I have to say. I enjoyed it. I am not enjoying the conversations around it, and I hope that the reception, I'm fine with the guys fighting once I have my ears plugged, because Capcom needs to realize that there were mistakes made with Requiem. They can't let the sales go to their heads, because they need to course correct, especially if the next Resident Evil mainline is going to close things up and let them lead into a new era of Resident Evil where they tell different tales within the timeline, if that's hopefully what they do. But that is my long-winded, semi off the cuff rant review about Resident Evil. It's a fine game. I'll probably play a little bit more of it when we're done here. I hope that the DLC and everything that follows is good, because aside from the fact that this sold amazingly well as far as I can tell, and the fact that
it's the best-selling Resident Evil game ever.
I think so, or at least from launch. I think that was the case. I didn't really get a chance to look at the numbers, but between that, the fact that the director behind it is also the guy that did Resident Evil 7, and Resident Evil 7 got a shit ton of content, I'm really hoping that with free updates and DLC, not saying that a game should have this, I like the game enough where I'm looking forward to what they could do with additional content down the road, I hope, because there's no bonus content as is right now, just a really, really fucking difficulty you unlock afterwards, and some bonus stuff to find.
So ultimately, at least for me, I'm waiting until they add mercenaries to pick it up. Like I'm I like Resident Evil enough to want to play through the game, but not enough to buy it like just for the story. And I mean, I've always been that way with Resident Evil. I've always enjoyed the campaign modes, but I keep on coming back to it, or like the time attack mode. Like that's my replayability.
Mhm.
So I hearing from you as far as like a hardcore Resident Evil fan goes, interesting to hear your thoughts. I do plan on picking it up eventually. It's just a
Mhm.
matter of when they add the mercenaries mode.
Or it goes on some
But
kind of deep sale or something.
yeah. Like I'm not paying $70 for it right now, but
Yeah,
eventually I will pick it up.
I do think that you would probably like. It's just weird for me to say. You might, despite my comments about like the underlying like teases and references and stuff like that. I do think you would get a lot out of Requiem whenever you do get around playing it, because it's literally the fear you are overcoming right now with your playthrough of Biohazard, and the gameplay stuff that you like with the Resident Evil 4 remake. Those are the two things you'd be dealing with.
Yeah, I know.
Because based on everything you said, like I said, Grace is basically an expanded version of Resident Evil 7 in a classic way, and Leon is somewhere between Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 6. Not quite the stamina rolling around dodging between cover, but like the action pacing and like the two-tiered melee system they got going on there, where you could fuck people up with the melee, then you have the melee moves from the contextual, and then also you have environmental finishers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that was a long what we've been playing this week segment.
Yeah, I mean, we two big things back to back.
Yeah.
Quite a week.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into what little news we do have this week. I mean, the biggest thing is this week was Marathon and Resident Evil. So
It's all
that
about the
out of
games
way.
we play, and that can be a good week sometimes too.
Indeed. Okay. So the first thing that I found was it is so Wolfenstein 3 is like just below being officially announced right now.
Yeah.
There's an article by MP First that is saying that first story details unveiled. No. First story details were not unveiled. Two people that were cast in the first two Wolfenstein games were rehired at Machine Games for a quote unknown project end quote. I think we all know what that is. That's why I'm saying
Yeah.
it's like one rung below being officially announced. So
That on top of all the interviews beforehand where they're talking about, oh, we're not done with it, oh, we have ideas, blah
Yeah.
blah blah.
yeah, so I mean, my feelings on this already. I love the new age Wolfenstein games. Can't wait for them to actually announce the third one to see where they take the story. But yeah, so two actors, well, one producer, one actor, I think, where they were rehired at Machine Games to do something, and probably within the exact same roles that they filled before. So it's something's brewing behind the scenes. I'm sure it's a matter of time before we hear an actual official announcement. So that is cool. I'm very much looking forward to Wolfenstein 3, whatever they may end up subtitling it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if I was had by this Twitter post. I might have been because I feel like we would have heard. We would have heard through much more official channels, but I saw that GTA 6 was delayed until April 18th of 27. I don't know how much validity there is to that. I'm assuming you have heard nothing other than what I posted.
Heard nothing, so I'm gonna assume. Hold on, let me do a quick fact check right now.
Yeah, that's why I don't think it's legit.
Let's see.
And this is from the account GTA 6 info. It's got a blue check mark. Doesn't really mean a whole lot these days, but
I mean, RockstarGames.com Newswire. Grand Theft Auto 6 will now release on Thursday, November 19th, 2026. We are sorry for adding additional time to what we realize has been a long wait, but these 3 extra months will allow us to finish the game with a level of polish you've come to expect and deserve. So unless I'm on some kind of weird phishing site, this is Rockstar's official website. It was a very tame review. I'm assuming there was an uproar about it because, as much as it is like, more time, it is only an extra 3 months, But
yeah. So that was probably bullshit. Oh well, I mean,
what do you
whatever.
mean it's probably bullshit? I'm on Rockstar's official website.
Yeah.
I just read you their official word.
Yeah, it's definitely bullshit. I'm not like super into GTA anymore. I know you aren't either. I'm going to pay attention to it when it comes out because it's like the biggest entertainment property ever created. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where that goes. So moving on from there, the next thing I posted was the Tech Marine update trailer, but we just talked about that, so I'm not going to bother.
Yeah, we went through the whole
Then
thing.
it was the marathon player numbers. So the picture you posted was for like the actual marathon, like full release. The because that had a concurrent player count I'm sorry, the all-time peak was 6,900. The Server Slam has its own title in the Steam store and on SteamDB. So like that, I think that was you were just looking at the wrong thing, but we already talked about that, so I'm not going to bother
Yes, we did.
either. Valve is getting sued by New York.
Yeah,
It's over loot boxes. That's nothing new. But I'm kind of surprised. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, you go first. You go first.
I'm surprised that Valve of all people is getting hit for this because they are more on the consumer-friendly end of things than pretty much anybody else in the gaming space.
I mean, it's a mixture of multiple things. Number one, it's just politicians, and different legal employees always they every now and again they'll just take pot shots at video games because it's an easy dunk. It's worth noting that Valve recently just came out of a legal battle on winning this legal battle with a massive with a massive backer behind it. I forget exactly what the context was. It had something to do with some kind of mechanic. I can't remember it. I feel bad for not realizing, but this lawsuit they just crawled out of had been going on for so long in the background that I completely forgot.
Mechanics.
But they won, and immediately these other this prosecutor immediately takes aim at them. Some people are calling foul play based on that, but it's worth noting that it's less shadowy and just more continued like old school not misunderstanding, but like gross like ignorance to what's going on, because everybody was kind of like combing through the precedent for this, and apparently like it has something to do with, like you mentioned, the online gambling and all that kind of stuff and the currency and stuff, but like even though like we've talked in the past about it is scummy the way they do certain things with this, she was like flat. She wasn't even like acting like a human or like somebody that would like play these games, whoever did the research for her. So it's like it's all frivolous, it's all bullshit, it's based on nothing, and most people are just saying the only reason this is happening is because Valve just won their major lawsuit and people are calling foul play. Time will tell to see exactly what's going on with that, but yeah,
nothing new in the space that we are in. So I'm sure nothing bad will happen to Valve. Never really does. All right, let's see. Another marathon article, but it's just about marathon is not a friendly place in the same way that Arc Raiders is, so I'm not even going to bother going over that. Apparently, Sony is pulling back from porting their games on PC, which is
the rumor going on about now.
Yeah. Kind of sucks, especially for me because I'm mainly on PC. But then again, I get it. It's the same identity crisis that Xbox is suffering right now, and it has been for quite some time. There's no reason to buy an Xbox. And if Sony put everything on PC, even if it is a year or two later, the way that they did with Ragnarok, then what's the point of buying a PlayStation? So I get it. Still kind of sucks. I don't think that like they were doing crazy numbers on PC to the point where like they're really that concerned about pulling their stuff from PC storefronts. So even if they did take a little bit of a hit monetarily, I don't think they're losing any sleep over it whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, overall, my whole thing, my comment on this is like, I think that Sony and Microsoft, less Nintendo because they've been very closed off from all this, they've been making rather, what's the best word? Like, I don't think I'm for exclusives, I guess is what I'm going to be getting at here, is that like I'm not that I'm particularly swooned by their libraries, but I think the industry is a better place when these guys play it a little tighter with their exclusives, and I think that with all the belt tightening and going on in the industry, I think Sony is just Sony's Sony's reasonings are that they just want more money, which is, that's just a company. But my whole
Yeah.
thing is like, I think it's better long term for the industry and everybody for companies to be focusing on exclusives anyway.
Yeah.
I don't particularly think the strategy immediately leads to better exclusives and all that kind of stuff. I do think that there's more to it than that, but I think that the confidence in Sony in foregoing the PC audience to strengthen their console exclusive lineup is a good thing. Whether I
Yeah,
think
no, I would
Sony's
agree with
good
that.
for it, but yeah,
As you're, talking about this, I'm, I mean, I've always been of this opinion, but I, I want to have a reason to buy a PlayStation.
yeah.
I want to have a reason to buy an Xbox. Right now, neither company really is giving me one to go out
Mhm.
and buy either of their pieces of hardware. I mean, I own an Xbox. I bought it on launch day when the Series lineup launched, but
Yeah.
I I have not had a PlayStation since the PS4, since like the original PS4. So
Yeah.
I don't see myself going back unless there's like another Uncharted level PlayStation exclusive, which I don't see one really coming anytime soon. But I would want to have a reason to go out and buy one of each consoles, but I just don't have that right now, and that's one of the biggest reasons why I have been maining PC for it's been like what 3 years now, something like that, give or take.
About. Yeah.
And I mean, to be honest, yeah, I don't get like the performance out of my laptop that I would get out of my Xbox or out of my desktop that I have at home, but I still like the freedom of having a PC that can do anything, and I like and as I have been getting more comfortable with it over the past few years, I do like the mouse and keyboard input method better than controller. I have realized this slowly but surely. And it's not even about like, oh, you don't need aim assist or it's more precise, blah, blah, blah. I like the fact that I have pretty much complete control over every button that I press.
Mhm.
And then I have much more freedom as far as like what brand peripheral I buy. Like it could have different features, it could have different button configurations. I could adjust the weight, blah, blah, blah. I like to have those kind of options, but again, I don't have a reason to buy a PlayStation or an Xbox right now. I haven't had one for several years, and unless, like I just said, unless either company announces a game in the same vein and quality and exclusivity as like Uncharted or back when Halo was in its heyday, I have just got no reason to go out and spend my money. Not to
Yeah.
mention the consoles now are like egregiously priced, so I'm
Yeah.
good with my PC for a while.
Of course.
But yeah, Sony is apparently. I mean, it's the rumor. Nothing is official yet, but yeah, they're seem to be pulling back on PC. But like you said, I think ultimately it's a good thing. Ultimately, them having this closed off ecosystem on the PlayStation, you would think would force Microsoft to do something on their platform. But we'll see what happens with that. I don't. God, there's so
It's
much
not.
to talk
It's
about
not
here.
an overnight thing. It's not an
Yeah,
overnight thing, and there's a lot
yeah,
of gears turning.
yeah,
It is really just a matter of I said earlier, this is a good set stage, but you still need people to play.
yeah. So anywho, that's the going-ons with Sony right now. The last thing that I have is I couldn't help but notice Highguard got yet another map and a new gadget, and I just think that's really funny because that game is all but dead. Actually, now that I'm talking about it, right now there's 386 people in game on Steam, which is essentially a dead game. However, um, I love to bring this up every chance that I get. Killing Floor 3 has 291, and I think that Killing Floor 3 is a better game overall than High Guard. So, yeah. I honestly am shocked that Tencent hasn't pulled the plug on High Guard yet, and it's still actually getting content. It's just fucking hilarious to me. It's like any day now, I'm just gonna take it off life support. Um, but yeah, that was one last tidbit I thought I would throw in there. Beyond that, I got nothing else. It was a relatively slow week, aside from the two major, or one and a half releases, I'll say. Resident Evil obviously is pretty big, pretty gigantic release. Marathon, not really like a big release because it's just a service land, but it's the first time that the general public had the opportunity to get their hands on it,
Yeah.
myself included. So, yeah. Unless you got anything else, I think I'm done.
No, I mean that was pretty much all that was going on this week anyway.
Yeah.
It was just a big week for releases. I can't really think of anything else that really happened that I have to cover. So I think that's pretty much it for this week.
Yeah. Yeah. Seems
Yeah.
that way. All right. Well, if you're still listening, thank you very much for listening. This was episode 95 of the Pregame Network podcast. We will be back once again next week with whatever else happens in the week ahead of us. So stay tuned for that. So on that note, thank you, and talk to everyone next week. Bye bye.
Bye.